All right. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Writer's Lens. This is Josh JCL Felto, and I am joined today by a return guest, a very good friend of mine, Willie Scott, who was previously on this podcast as one half of the dynamic duo for Better Than Blended, which was actually my first interview on this podcast. So welcome back, Willie.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. For those who either are just listening or are actually checking out the video of this, Willie is, like I said, one half of the Better Than Blended group. His wife, Rachel, is not with him for this interview because for this one, I'm actually going to be switching gears and talking about Willie's musical interests, or rather his, well, I guess you could call it your musical career in a sense, because you have been recording and doing different things like that. So,
right.
But I don't want to jump ahead, so I want to let you kind of talk a little bit through that too, Willie. But thanks again for just being on here, man. It's a real pleasure to have you back on this podcast.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. Sorry for the delay. Thank you. I had to. I'm sitting here in our office, in our home office, but somebody came to the door because we were actually literally just trying to get the kids in the bed, and I heard somebody coming down the hallway. So I'm like, they're about to open the door, and I heard them turn the knob, peeking in. So it could have been the wife trying to peek in and listen to see what I'm doing, but. That's why my attention was shifted for a quick second. And then I heard you, so I had to jump back in.
Oh, no, it's all good. I think that's perfectly authentic, though, from you, because you have so many kids.
Right.
That just makes so much sense to me that would be kind of like your situation. So
right.
I think that was probably the best way to start off this interview, Willie. So thanks, man. So again, just real quick, Willie and I got connected, oh man, many years ago now at this point, and we met initially at a writing workshop at the Parma, I think it's like the Parma Main Library that's here in Cleveland.
Yep, the Parma Snow Branch.
Yep. And Willie was there with his wife, Rachel. They were talking about their new book, Better Than Blended, taking your family from surviving to thriving, I believe is the full name.
Yep.
And you guys do amazing work with that, and I'm a big fan of it, as you know.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love what you guys do. It's a real niche area that you guys, being a blended family as you are, having 7 kids between the two of you, it's just an awesome ministry thing that you've been called to do. So I didn't want to overshadow any of this with that, but I do love what you guys do. So I just wanted to say that again. But
right, that's connected to it though, because that's part of the reason why I slowed down on some of the music anyway. So all of it's connected basically. So
exactly. So because as I found out after we had started talking, and after we had connected, because me being an author that was there, you guys being authors that were there with our self-published works, I come to find out that you actually are extremely musically inclined. And have done some music videos. You've released some music. You've recorded, like EPs, I think is the best way to describe it.
Right.
So you've had your voice out there for a while. I mean, how long actually have you been recording music?
I would say, how long have we been recording music? It's been like 20. It had to be like 20 years.
Wow.
That we've been doing music because we actually. I did the secular side of music a while ago, and that was in like 1999. Mm-hmm. Started doing music in around 1999, so 98, 99, after I graduated from college. Wow. And I didn't even initially. I love music, no matter I love hip hop. I love a different form of hip hop just because of the message that comes across and what's being said and poured out. Mm-hmm. So of course I pay attention to that now, but I love all types of music, man. And my kids do the same thing. So if a song comes on, that's why I have to be careful of what I do listen to, because if a song comes on, then I'll instantly I'll memorize it. And like 5 minutes later, you'll hear me humming the tune. I'm like, where did I get that song from? Because it just sticks in my head. So, but I started in 99 with my brother. Literally, I started with actually just writing, and I wasn't even my thought process wasn't even to actually do any rapping or anything like that. And so he asked me to help him with a song. I actually started doing like some ghostwriting, whatever. I would come up with hooks, and it was him and my friend Matlock, which we talked about Matlock, but it was him and Matlock, my brother Matlock, and they were doing music together. Matlock did a lot of the production. Matlock actually rapped too. My brother rapped. And so I was like, hey, I'm not going to rap. I'll just write. And so I would write. And then eventually what happened is they was like, hey, you just need to write a verse. You just need to go ahead and get on the song. And then that led to me actually getting on a couple songs and us doing a whole project together. Mm-hmm. So.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, for those who actually are just listening and maybe you can't see it, you were actually repping, I believe, what is like kind of your current, I want to say, brand or so, the I Am Told. Which is real cool, man. So we can go back to what you were doing in the secular world before we kind of talk about maybe what you've been doing recently.
Gotcha.
But I know that you have an incredible love of music, and I said before that this is the writer's lens. You are a writer, even though you initially were like, no, my wife is really the writer in the family, man. She's the one who did all the Better Than Blended stuff, and she made all this. But then the most amazing thing happened. You were telling me about you wrote music after we were getting to know each other better, and you were like, man, I got this song on YouTube that you should check out. But I actually found you before I think you even told me about it, right?
Yep.
And the greatest thing is that if you know Willie personally and you had no idea that he does music, you'd probably be completely blown away by this by your talent, because I remember watching it and I brought my wife into the room. And I said, you have got to see this video on YouTube. And she goes, who is that? And I said, that's Willie. And she goes, no, it isn't. But you say that's usually the response a lot of people have.
Yeah. So I've gotten so many responses as far as like literally good friends of ours. I'm like, hey, you know what, man? I want you to check out some music. He was like, oh, okay. I'm like, it's a song I did. He's like, oh, you did it? And I'd be like, yeah. And so they would listen to it. They wouldn't listen to it right then and there. They would listen to it later. I'm like, I'm going to just send it to you. And they would listen to it at home or whatever. And then they would call me back and they would say, dude, that song was amazing. Like, I didn't know you could do that. It's like, but I was nervous at first because you know how you have good friends. You're like, are we going to be friends still after this? Because everybody say they want to do music. He's like, I don't know if he don't look like he can rap. So they thought that it was going to be horrible, probably. But everybody surprisingly just astonished at the music. So
yeah,
I think that's just I just thank God for the gift. Like, it's literally something that He's gifted me with. I have a love for it, but I don't take credit for the content or like the brain behind it, because it just flows naturally. But it's also I don't say it flows naturally. Actually, I want to say, because there's many times when I'm in the studio, we can talk about this in an interview too, but many times when I'm in the studio and I'm writing, I have to stop because of the fact that I'm stuck. I get stuck. So then I have to literally, I'm like, okay, Lord, what do you want? What do you want to say next? How do you want this to go next? And I'll sit there until He gives me the next part of the song. And then from there, I'll get the next part of the song. Then I'll go, and then I either will flow from there, or I may have to do that for every line and say, hey, okay, so what am I saying next? Especially because sometimes I get in self and I'll just start writing, but I'll get stuck at some point when I know I'm not reliant, or I'll go into it totally relying on Him. I'll get stuck at some point. And then eventually what I do is I remember, like, oh, this is not my song anyway. So let me ask for help.
That's great, man. And that was what I wanted to really ask you, is that you obviously have influences. I mean, every artist has influences as they grow up, that they go, man, I really want to emulate that person, or the way that they write, or their expression, or just maybe even the beats that they make, things like that. Like who would you say have been your biggest influences as far as your musical background?
I would say from before, like my favorite artist from the past would have been like Bone Thugs and Harmony. It would be like a Bone Thugs and Harmony. It would be Twister, as far as just like the fast rap, because I like the fast rap. I like the Bone Thugs and Harmony. I like Crucial Conflict. I don't know. Are you hip to Crucial Conflict?
No.
Okay. So Crucial Conflict. Hey,
I know Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's about it.
From what I can remember, and I might get it wrong, but from what I can remember about Crucial Conflict, I think they were. I know they were from. I want to say they were from Chicago or something like that, and maybe it may not be Chicago, but I know they had like they had like a Southern accent actually, and I know Chicago is not Southern, so I don't know where they were from, but I know that they would talk. They had a Southern accent. I like the dialect and just the fluctuations and the patterns of how they actually they flow. So I like the same thing with Bone Thugs and Harmony. I just like the patterns and the different way that they flow. Same thing with Twister. I like the patterns and stuff like that. So that I would say those were probably some of my favorites. I know. Are you hip to Scarface?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay,
one.
so Scarface. Now he will be another artist that I really really like. Scarface would be another artist I really like. So I don't know. I think those would be the artists. And then of course I didn't listen to a lot of R&B, but I like putting melodies with actual rap with the music. So I had some artists that, as far as singing, I actually like Michael Bolton. So I actually like Michael Bolton. I used to listen to his music too. So I know it's surprising, but
I'm containing it. I'm containing my surprise.
and like Celine Dion. So I could go on with several different artists that I actually listen to, but all that actually helped to formulate what I have now, I believe.
That's good, man. So then that would be kind of like from before, but as far as if people don't really know your story, there was music that you did before, like we would say that you knew the Lord, and there's, artists that, maybe have influenced you now, in the kind of the aftermath of that. So,
right.
So what does that look like now as far as?
I would say artists that I really like now would be, I really love Bizzle. I don't know if you have to Bizzle, but I really love Bizzle. I just love his delivery. I love his content, his heart behind his message. I listen to his message. His message is really authentic, from what I see and what I hear. And then, of course, Trip Lee. That guy is a really solid artist. I like his lyrics and his patterns, his flow. Like he's one of those artists that, I don't know, he's one of those artists that you will be waiting for his verse to come on. Like, okay, where's it at? Where's it at? Like, oh, there it go. Because he always has some type of intro before his verse comes on. That, like, if he's featuring with somebody else or he's with a group, it'll be an intro. They'd be like, yes, sir. And then his verse will come in. And you'll be like, I know it's coming. So you get excited about it. So I would say, I'm trying to think who else. There's another artist, now I'll just name a couple more. Artist named Tadashi that I really like. I love his heart too. I've listened to interviews of these guys and just kind of listen to how they talk. I listened to some of the, just them actually maybe preaching or them speaking at a school or university, some stuff that may be on YouTube or stuff like that. And I listen to it, just try to hear their theology, and of course, like listening to them to hear kind of their thought process on just stuff that's going on in the world today, how they kind of process it, how they relate that, back to spiritual, back to the Lord, and that's how I kind of lead and guide. Because my son Darius, he likes artists, and I have to tell him that I don't listen to even if it's a Christian artist, a secular artist, Christian artist, I don't listen to every Christian artist just because, or every artist that's a Christian, if you want to put it like that. I don't listen to every artist because everybody has some type of baggage or filter that they process and stuff through. Yeah. So even me or the next artist, they could be a Christian artist, but they still can have some music that where the lyrics are coming through. I can hear it. I can listen to the lyrics and I can tell that they're still dealing with some pain in the area. So I have to make sure I guard my kids from certain music, no matter what music it is, to say, hey, okay, that song is okay. Yeah, he's a Christian artist, but I don't want you listening to that specific song because I know what he's talking about, and I know he's still dealing with some baggage, or she's still dealing with some baggage, and I don't need you listening to that and dealing with that. So
that's really good, man. Like it's funny because just in casual conversation, we talk to people about, like, when we were growing up, maybe our parents or somebody was like looking over our shoulder and saying, hey, are you listening to that? Are you listening? Maybe you shouldn't be listening to that. And yet it even goes a step further because, there is the Christian music genre, and that covers a whole multitude of different types of artists. I mean, we've been talking primarily about rap, but there's, rock and orchestrated and all kinds of stuff. But there are filters even for Christian artists that, even a person who may be secular. I mean, if you're someone listening who would consider yourself to be secular and not a Christian, it's okay. Little insight into the Christian genre is that it's not all flowers and butterflies and,
right.
Sort of the rainbow thinking that comes with, the association of Christian artistry. In fact, it's almost better, I think, sometimes when you don't know if the person is a Christian and you start to see in their lyrics that they do have some sort of, there's like the spirit behind it almost, in some sense. But I totally hear you, man, as far as the filters go. But I think it also shows too your attention to detail as far as, well, what are my kids hearing as well, which is really interesting. So I don't think I prepped you for this question, but when you were talking about, you're already smiling. You're like, what does Josh have for me now? That's why I love talking to you, Willie. So
excuse me, that's why my sinuses are bothering me a little bit. So I lean over and try to get out of the microphone because I had to clear my throat. So, but go ahead. I'm just letting you know, letting your listeners know. Say, like, what is that noise? That's me, guys. That's me. Sorry.
You and I are both facing right now, man. It's January in Cleveland. I got the sinuses too, so it's all good.
Right.
So, but as far as like the filters and things like that, like this was something I really wanted to kind of unpack with you. Is, a lot of times when it comes to artistry as a Christian, there are things that you were attracted to before you knew God, right? Like there are things you're attracted to from an expression standpoint, and then now there's things that you become like we've been saying before in some of our off the mic conversations. You become spiritually sensitive to, right? Like
right.
It's not something that you feel hindered by necessarily, but it's rather I feel a little more sensitive to this because, now I feel like more like I'm walking with God or whatnot. So having that in mind, like, do you kind of look back and you say, I don't want my kids to listen to some of the stuff I did before, or is there a process of like, hey, I'm the dad, I'm going to get to you guys first before you hear these kinds of things? Because I mean, as an artist yourself, it's kind of a strange, I don't want to say it's strange, but it's a different kind of dynamic because you have things that are out there that they can find as well as other stuff that they can find, right?
Right.
So.
Yep. And then, so are you talking about like as far as like some of my old music or just period? This song's period.
Both. Yeah. So both. So like old music that you've done and just like music in general.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that conversation with the kids as far as just there was a time when I wasn't saved or whatever, and I didn't understand that part, and this is what I thought music was about. And not because I'll talk to them about music that's out, and I'll say, hey, I don't think you need to listen to that song, or I don't want you to listen to that song, or I'll say, hey, we don't listen to that music in the house. And sometimes what I'll do is before I even say that much, I'll say, hey, what are they talking about? Like my son was listening to a song. I was like, what are they talking about? He's like, Dad, this song is cool. It's okay. He's like, all he's talking about is, I forgot what it's like, Rolly or something like a Rolex. I said, oh, okay. I said, are you sure? He was like, yeah, I listened to it. And but all he knew was the hook. And so I said, what I want you to do is I want you to go write the lyrics down. And so he went and wrote the lyrics down, and he came back and he was like, I didn't know they said all that. I didn't know. I said, yeah, I know you. I know you didn't know. I said, but I wanted you to go write them down so you would see what he was talking about. And if you're reciting the hook, but that means that you're coming into agreement with those lyrics, with the lyrics of the song too. So that's why I'm saying we don't listen to that in the house. We don't promote that music. I don't want you to listen to it outside of the house, but I can't control everything you listen to because I'm not with you 24/7. Right. The only thing I can do is I can set a standard of what we listen to, and I can explain to you why we don't listen to that. And when you get out and go to school, you're gonna have to make a choice and a decision on what you want to listen to. But ideally, I let them know too that we still figure out if you're listening to stuff and you're doing it at school. We still find out that you're listening to it because what happens is you slip up and you singing it, or the song come or something happens like we somewhere else and the song come on and then you like they get into the song like, how you know this song? Because we don't listen to that. How you know this song? They're like, Dad, what you mean? I heard it before. Like, yeah, I know. So I mean, I try. It's really a teaching moment, man. It's a teaching moment for me. It's not, and again, it goes back to not only secular music. It goes to whatever the content of the song is. Is the content of the song appropriate is the content of the song. Because again, even with some Christian artists or whatever, even songs that are inspirational, what is the song talking about? It could be talking about a relationship, and it could be talking about marriage, but it could be talking about it in a more intimate manner that my child is 12 or 9 or 8 don't need to listen to, even at this point in time. Like, they're not old enough to even engage in that type of conversation. So why would they be listening to a song that may not be going into detail intimacy, but it could be talking about some things? And so I just have to guard them from all of that as best as I can. So
no, that's really good, man. And that kind of like leans into, I mean, what you and Rachel do. I mean, as far as the family ministry. So
right.
I see all of this just interweaves in your life, and I think it's awesome.
Right.
And it's funny though, you're saying about like how they slip up and they'll sing something. I mean, like my oldest right now is only 3.5, and he's already asking me questions like, "Dad, like what's this person singing about?" Right? And it makes me think, okay, when I'm with him and if I'm listening to music in the car, I have to be cognizant of that. I have to be very cognizant of what my child is absorbing. And granted, like you said, like you're not going to be with them 24/7 as they go through their life. It's just not feasible. It's not going to happen. I don't think you'd want to be either. But in that same sense, setting that standard, I think is just I just think that's awesome as far as being intentional about it as well.
Yeah, those times are crucial just because of the fact that it's like this. If you thinking about your own self and your body, if you know that when you go outside, and I'm just using this as an example, hopefully it makes sense. As you go outside, you know that you can't control the pollution that's in the air. You can't control half of the stuff that gets sprayed on the vegetable. Even if you buy organic food, you still gonna get something because there's stuff in the soil. So you can't control some of that stuff that's naturally, some of the toxins that you're naturally gonna take it in your body. So why would you go and eat a whole bunch of toxic food or a whole bunch of other toxins? So it's kind of like with your kids. If you know you can't control when they're at school and some of the stuff that they may get exposed to, then why wouldn't you control some of that environment when you do have the opportunity to control it? You know what I'm saying? So that's the biggest thing, because you're gonna have to, and it's not, and it's not that we would shelter them from it, like where they just never. Because I've heard experiences where kids they never hear it. I don't allow my kids to listen to certain music, period.
Right.
And it's not necessarily a sheltered thing in a sense, but it's more so, it is kind of sort of sheltered thing. It's more so of protecting them spiritually from the stuff that's being said and avoiding those doors from being opened up. But then at the same time, when they are exposed to certain things, I don't just shut it down and say, no, don't listen to that. And because I said so, there's an explanation, there's a conversation about it, and they have to understand why. They have to understand the importance of music, how the enemy uses music, and how that's a tool that can be used for good or for evil in that sense. And so, I mean, the conversation can go as deep as you want it to go to a certain extent with depending on the age. But in some cases, I'm talking to my 3-year-old, it's just a real surface conversation. I just say, hey, man, God doesn't, that music is not a music that we will play for God. Like, God wouldn't like that music. He'd be like, oh, okay. But if I'm talking to my 12-year-old, then I'm gonna have a deeper conversation with it, because he's gonna want a little bit more explanation. For my 3-year-old, is gonna be like, oh, okay, Jesus doesn't like it. Okay, let's change it. My 12-year-old is gonna be like, and then I got to go into some explanation, a little bit deeper explanation, a little bit better explanation, and say, hey, I'm not saying you can't listen to anything, but hey, let's listen to this. What are they talking about? Let's listen to this. So we actually have fun listening to music. He'll bring songs to me and be like, hey, did you check this song out? Listen to this song. I think it's a good song. Tell me what you think about it. And then I'll listen to it and kind of go and say, hey, that was cool. That was good. Or I'll be like, the first verse was cool, but the second one, he was talking a little bit about something that you may not be ready for yet. So,
yeah, because, excuse me, I think that also what you're saying is a fear that so many parents have, is that they're going to shelter their kids too much. They're going to totally rebel, right? Like they're going to go the complete opposite direction. My greatest plans laid with the best intentions have ultimately turned on me, right? But I think as far as what you're saying, there's an explanation behind the because I said so is a lot different than because I said so,
Right.
As far as the music is concerned. So I really like that, man. I like that. So, so switching gears a little bit from there, music tends to be something that I think when people think about it, they don't go, well, it's telling a story, but it is, right? I mean, as far as, you know, when you're writing music and, you know, like I've never composed anything myself, but I do write. And I know that there's narratives inside of songs as much as there's narratives inside of books. And like you were saying that we have different filters through which we will write things and we will say things and we'll express things, you know?
Right.
So when it comes to just like, I guess, music, I mean, I'm always so curious to hear about these kinds of things because you hear people's like personal stories come out in their music. You know, there's like different things that they see. There's different lenses that they're taking things in. So does music, I guess, like writing, I mean, for you, does it feel more therapeutic or is it more like I'm using this to like reach somebody with something? Or like, you know, do you think it's a little bit of both when it comes to music?
I definitely think it's both.
Mm-hmm.
For me, one instance is it's just a release in a sense of stuff that's going on around. Sometimes for me, it's therapeutic in the sense of it's me speaking things forth. You know, like as the Bible says, speak those things as if they were, or something of that nature, you know, paraphrasing. But they, so for me, it's that too. Because in like one of the verses that I wrote, I was sitting here trying to remember it because I haven't listened to my own music in such a long time. Sometimes I'll put it on because the kids, they'll be like, hey, well, really, Aaron's probably the only one in the house that requests the music. Everybody else be like, oh, we listen to this again. So my biggest critics, my biggest fans.
Right.
But one of the song's favorite, and I think the verse, I'm trying to remember my verse, it starts off, it says 9 to 5, gotta leave it. Sun tubed up, chest wheezing, bill stacking, checks needed. Then I say house paid off, I see it. And so in that, I'm literally talking about I had to leave. I left my job. Like that was the story. You know that story of leaving the full-time job that I was at for 15 plus years. And because my son was in and out of the hospital sick. He was having breathing treatments all the time, like just in and out of hospital. So I talk about that in the beginning of the verse. But then I also talk about some of the challenges that we experienced through that, and some of the things that I saw that God, some promises God made to me that I saw that I believe and still believe, you know, are going to come forth or that have come forth or whatever. So, I mean, for me, it's really a reality. Usually when I write, it's me sharing like a testimony in some cases. In some cases, it's me writing something inspirational for somebody to kind of lift them up. And then I've had a few times where it was me just kind of creating a story, like creating like a song or a story in like a timeline or a story of something that happened. And I talk about the person going through these challenges and they making some decisions or having to make some decisions and kind of and really dealing with real life stuff. It may not have been something I went through personally, but it may be something that I've seen somebody else go through. So
that's really good. That's really good. I mean, I I can totally relate to that as a writer. I mean, like sometimes I think there's things that's just for me, you know, that I think is just ultimately that, you know, I don't really feel comfortable sharing with everybody. I think there also is a little bit of a, you know, I don't know if it's a selfish thing or maybe it's like an egotism kind of thing, but like wanting to share everything with everybody, like, you know, oh, I'm so good, I have to share it with everyone. But at the same time, there's stuff that I guess could be just for you, you know, as far as, you know, just the therapeutic sense of it. So, you know, I could totally see that, man, as far as from a musical standpoint. You know,
some of those songs actually be the songs that take off for artists. They're like, you'll hear it so many times. They say, I didn't even write this. Like, I didn't even really want to put this song out. I think Bizzle was the one. He wrote a song where he was talking about just struggle with. I want to say it was like a struggle with like lust or pornography or something like that. And he did an interview on it and he talked about how like, man, I didn't even want to put this song out. He said I was hesitant about putting it out just because of what it was talking about. How is this gonna make my wife feel? How is this gonna make me feel? How are people gonna receive it? And he said it. I mean, he got so many testimonies. So he got flooded with stuff from people that were just thanking him for sharing his story. and for how his story impacted them, and it kind of helped them in a situation, or he was able to minister to people that was reaching out to him for that. So, I mean, I think we have to. That's why we definitely have to be in tune with God, with the Holy Spirit. So then he'll be the one that's leading, doing the writing, because he knows, ultimately, he knows who needs what. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm just obedient to that, then there's somebody. If he's having me write it, then there's somebody that needs it. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's just for me to write it down and release it. It could just be for me, or it could be for somebody that he knows will listen to it and is gonna need it, even if it's one person. So,
yeah, that's really good, man. Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes like what we think is our biggest weakness ends up being our biggest strength, as far as being to reach people. Because again, I think just in entertainment in general, when you think about music or film or anything, I guess that is produced, with the intent of sharing a story. People almost have like an expectation that the one who's producing this has it all together, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, or who has all of the resources available to them. There's some kind of silver spoon, maybe. There's there's something that goes beyond just talent. Even maybe it's like some sort of superhuman talent, but in reality, there's this. I'm coming out of a place of weakness almost in order to share this with everybody, because at the end of the day, we're all kind of the same in some sense. We have different giftings, but yeah, that's really good, man. That's really good. So as far as what I've heard a lot of the stuff you've been doing in the past, I guess, but you haven't really picked up anything necessarily recently. But I know that you're working this year as far as maybe on like a new project, or you're going to be perhaps getting back into recording again. Is there anything specifically that spurred that on, or because you guys are very busy? I mean, you and I were having a conversation about what your goals were for 2019, and I about fell over in my chair just listening to like you and Rachel just turning up a notch in terms of like, man, we're gonna get after it. We're just really gonna get after it. So I really am encouraged by you guys and your ability to be laser focused in that. But as far as making time for other musical pursuits and projects like this year, is there anything that was there anything that spurned it, and is there something that you're doing right now that you're kind of feeling led to do?
Yeah, I would say, excuse me, a couple things. My sister-in-law sent a message, and this is probably, I want to say maybe like 3-4 months ago, or 5. It could have been longer than that. But she sent a message, and she was just speaking prophetically, just saying, she woke up and she's like, she sent it to my wife and just was saying, hey, tell Willie that, she's like, I don't know why I woke up thinking about him in the music, but she said, is he still doing music? And Rachel was like, well, yeah, he hasn't really done it, in a while. He still definitely desires to do music, but just with the business, everything else is going on. We just haven't really had the time to sit down and do it. She's like, well, just tell him that I heard God say, don't forget about the music. He still is going to use that. So in the back of my mind, I always hold on to the music, because literally when me and Rachel got together, when we got married, she when I was doing music then, she said she had a word just saying, I believe, because I connected with a couple people. I got a couple artists that's from Africa, Zambia, that I talk to them frequently, like maybe like once a month or something like that, or a couple times a month. We talk, and there's some really dope artists, really good artists musically. And so I'll give them feedback. They send me the music. I give them feedback on it. I'll send them music. They give me feedback on it. I did a couple songs with 2 of them over there. Like I featured on a couple songs they did. And so but we've always talked about collabing and getting together. Me going out, because obviously I want to go to Africa, but going out to Africa. And literally in the beginning of the marriage, this is when Rachel, she said the same thing. She was like, you know what? I don't know why I saw a vision of your music, and I heard the Lord say that your music is going to be over in Africa or whatever. And this is before I started doing music with them in Africa. And so, but she also said that she saw us going over there. So I hold on to those thoughts. I know that God gifted me in the area of music. I believe that that's a gift that He wants to use to bless other people. So this year, I definitely want to do another project. I honestly, when I was earlier today, when I was actually ironing my clothes, I was sitting there thinking about our interview. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to tell Josh about, I understand why it takes, if you look at artists, there'll be artists you be like, yo, they put out a song in like 2 years or 3 years, and it seems like a long time, but 2 or 3 years is not a long time. Yeah. Like it goes by like that, like snap of a finger. Especially because I'm looking at me as far as music. When I think about right now, we're doing what Better Than Blended. So these are the different businesses. Better Than Blended, TKI Publishing, which is we're publishing books. TKI Designs and Printing, which we're designing and printing, doing rebranding and stuff like that. And then we have a nonprofit. And then that's not even including my wife doing the I Can't Come Down movement as far as her thing that she does. And then I have the I Am Fold as far as music. So the last time me and Matlock did a song together, or that I put out a song, was I think we did that song maybe like 3 years ago. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, somewhere around there. And that was the latest song that we had done. And so before that, I did a song. Me and my wife have been married for 7 years. So I did a song, like an album or EP, right at the beginning of our marriage. But I look at artists, and now I understand why it could be such a gap in between doing music, because of life that goes on. You got business, you got kids, and you got life. Mm-hmm. And then you also have music, and you also have other ministry that you may be working on, or whatever else that you may be doing. So I don't know. My goal is to put out a project this year. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a single, I'm talking to the 2 guys in Africa. We're actually talking about collabing on a project, which actually will take some of the weight off of me and helping me put it together, because they're going to actually do some writing and I'll do some writing. And so I want to do that. I do want to put out something, and then eventually what I want to do is put out an actual album. So we're looking at hopefully mid-year, somewhere before it gets cold again. So hopefully not a full year.
Yeah, before it gets cold, because it'll be warm and then it'll be back to being cold again in Cleveland.
Right, so. Exactly. That's how it goes.
That's so awesome, man. I don't even think I actually officially introduced as far as what the name is that you go by. The I Am Fold. I think you and I are just so used to talking to each other, just kind of casual conversation. I mean, this conversation's been great too. So, but as far as like you're not just Willie Scott, the recording artist. You actually do have like I said earlier, the I Am Fold, which is what you go by. So, what is the story behind that? If we can get that real quick, as far as where the name Fold comes from.
That's real. Yeah. That's a simple answer. Yeah. The name comes from a friend. He just is like he's like, oh, we're gonna call you Fold, and I was like, what is that? Like, what does it mean? He was like, I don't know, because everybody had a name. Like my brother had a name, Matlock went by Matlock, because that was his last name, but it was cool. It was creative, and so everybody in the group had a name. My brother went by 100. Is basically what he went by, and I only one didn't. So then my one friend who would do some featuring with us, I think at that time his name was what was it? K9. He went by K9, and so I was the only one that have a name. He was like, "Oh, we'll just call you Fold." But I was like, "Well, what does it mean?" He's like, "I don't know. It just sounds cool." And so that's what I was like. Okay, I'll go with it. I just kept it, and so. All the time, like, all that time I just would use it, and when I was doing secular music, I made it into an acronym, and it stood for Flexing on Lames with Drama. So, that's what it meant back in the day. So, but you know what? I found out later that name, even though I didn't know what it meant then, it was very intentional, because later on, I got the name, and this is what God downloaded to me. It was following our Lord's direction. And so the I Am Fold movement is I am following our Lord's direction. And so it's really like what I have, I Am Fold above it, I have who do you follow? And it says I am following our Lord's direction. So that's what the meaning of it is now. But I got ridiculed by my kids. They're like, I'm just folding clothes. I'm like, get out of here.
That is awesome.
But that's where it comes from.
I'm so glad I waited till so long in the interview to ask you that question, because that was awesome. And your kid's dogging on you too, which is just awesome.
Every single time. My daughter, we have a what is it? It's called Group Me, I think, like the Group Me app.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
We have a family Group Me, well, we don't use it now. We were using it at some point. We were using it, but she put in the group me. She changed my name to Mr. So-called Rapper. I was like, what?
What is that?
And so I changed it to I Got Bars.
That's, I mean,
so
that's awesome.
Rachel was just cracking up. My wife, she was just cracking up in the group. And then she actually sent the message back to my daughter saying, Don't be talking about my husband. Right. He said he got bars because he got bars. It was fun. It's fun. I have a lot of fun with the kids with it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And to be humble about it, I mean, that's great. And as far and as they always say, mockery is the sincerest form of flattery.
Right.
So
right.
I mean, knowing that, about I won't dog you about it. I won't dog you for I won't send you any messages later saying like, "Hey, I'm folding clothes, Willie. I just wanted you to know." I just thought you should know. Maybe I will. Maybe I will if I'm feeling kind of a little playful or something like that. Maybe I will. But yeah, man, that's awesome. I didn't know actually about what fold meant before it became following our Lord's direction. I didn't know that, so that's really cool. I didn't know that.
I don't tell too many people that.
Yeah. Well,
it's some people that know about. Well, I know it's gonna go now because you're gonna promote it. Right. I don't just share that information with too many people in the sense of even with the old music. I have a couple guys that hit me up like, "Oh man, what's up? What's going on with this album and that album?" I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know. It's out there in cyberspace somewhere, but I don't even have a copy of it. Like, right. And it's not that I mean, I know the content of what I was sharing at that point in time. Mm-hmm. It was from a lost mindset in a sense, and it was just from what I thought that I should be rapping about. So that's what I did. It was what the world taught me. So that's what I actually shared. But at this point in time, I know better. So once you know better, you do better.
Yeah, that's really good, man. Because like and I think I told you this. Like my first 2 books I published were books that I did before I was really walking with the Lord. So I published those, and I remember I had and it's funny you mentioned the thing about fold because now I feel that much closer to you now because when I published those first 2 books, I was going by my current pen name, which is JCL Felto. Uh-huh. And when I went to go publish The Scientist's Dilemma, when I was doing The Road to Mars, I had this like moment of apprehension because I didn't know if I should keep JCL Felto because I didn't want that name associated with the first 2 books that I had published.
Right.
And so I had kind of this like personal crisis there where I just went, oh no, like what am I going to do about this? I don't know if I should keep JCL because people might read the Epiphanies books and go, okay, that dude was like way into like satire and just an angry voice, and he was just maybe trying to be funny, but I didn't get it. And now he wants me to read this like deep theology and philosophy, and like I don't think I can do that.
Right.
And so I was very apprehensive about it. But then I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and he just said, man, that's gonna be part of your story. He goes, right. You have to keep that. You really have to keep that as part of, because that's who you are. That's what you've done. And why would you try to hide that if you don't have anything to hide anymore?
Right.
And I just went, man, I go, that is really good. So,
right.
So that is cool. Just again, goes to show, the Lord works in mysterious ways and uses, even the things that we think we're doing so awesome with that we look back and go, oh, I'm not so sure if I wanted that, but he's still using it. So. That's
right.
Really,
that's good. I definitely agree with that because you got some people in the Bible, their name got changed.
Right.
Some people, their name didn't get changed. Like David. David stayed David. He did a whole bunch of good stuff, but he did a whole bunch of jacked up stuff too.
That's right.
And so and he still stayed David. So I mean, unless God told you to change it or He changed it, then I mean you keep it to what it is because it is part of your story.
Yep.
So people get to go back and see the growth. That's what my biggest thing is. I don't advertise the other stuff, but if somebody came across it and there's like, hey, that would be a conversation. Mm-hmm. And it would be a conversation of, hey, I found this music you used to do, and it would open up a conversation of being able to tell my story from where I came from and why I transitioned and the fruit that I see from that onto fruit that I see now. And so I believe that would just open up some dialogue that could probably touch somebody. So.
That's really good, yeah, because, I mean, I'm a big story guy, so just hearing people's stories of like where they get to where they're going, and just seeing how, you know, like especially in your story, and we can have the kind of lower level discussion about where God's leading, you know, in our lives is, you know, to me it's just so fascinating. It's just so interesting to see how that starts to, looking backwards in hindsight, how he was there working, you know, even though you were kind of like, no, this is all me, you know, this is all me. I'm the one doing all this. And, you know, and we can kind of wrap this up here in a second, but last point I did want to discuss is that, and I've talked about this with a couple other people that I've interviewed before, is that when it comes to art, when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to writing, and there's this idea of like, I have my gifts and I run with them and I don't need anybody else, right? Like, I have my talent. God gave me this, you know, thank you very much, God. I can take it from here. You know, like you were saying in the beginning, how, you know, I get stuck, you know, or I might get stuck and I might say, okay, you know, I need a kind of a divine download at this point. Do you, as far as, you know, your writing, your music, even what you do as a dad, I mean, how much is it that we have to take a step back and go, okay, I don't have all the answers right now, right? Like, we're always kind of learning in that process. And would you say, like, your music is the same way? You know,
yeah, I would say it's exactly the same way, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just because of the fact that, I mean, music for me is seasonal. Just meaning dependent, cause and I say that in this way too because of the fact that there are moments where I probably should have been writing, and because I had a lot of stuff going on, and at that point in time I could have told that story, and so then there are seasons where because there was one point in time where I was sharing the story of the same season over and over again, because that's what I knew to share. And it wasn't until me and my wife actually had a conversation, and so and she brought it to my attention. I paid attention. I was like, oh yeah, you know what? And so, but at that point in time, I was like, well, that's my story. That's what I know. And she was like, well, there's so much more to your story now. So what else can you share? And so I looked at that and I started to pay attention to it. And I'm like, you know what? It is so much more to my story. It's my story, and everybody on here doesn't know the story, but in short, story of coming from being married previously to, you know, my first wife passing, to being a widow or widower, whatever a guy widow is, and going into, you know, just the dating scene and being a single dad for a certain amount of years, and then getting remarried and kind of going into that new transition of this wonderful life, and now running some businesses and working from home with my kids, and just, I mean, that there's so much more to the story than me losing, I forgot even the part of my mom, and my mom passing shortly after my first wife passed. So even coming from those stories, there was a season where those were okay stories to share, and they still okay to share now, even if there's somebody that may need it. But I really like to take the lead in of however God leads me. But when she told me that, it actually took me out of a box. Like, I was boxed in to thinking, okay, this is what every song, I tell the same story, but it's in a different way. And so I didn't pay attention to that until she actually pointed it out. But I think that it's crucial. I think that the content that we write is definitely based on whatever. I know for me, it's based on whatever I'm going through, and it's based on whatever God lays on my heart, whatever he flows through me to actually pen out.
That's good, man. That's really good. I think that's just the struggle and the challenge of any creative, really. You know, is like you were saying, music can be seasonal. You know, when I'm writing my own stories, I feel the same way. You know, right. I never felt like I ever got writer's block until I really became an adult and had a lot more responsibility. Right. That's true.
You know, that's definitely true. I'm telling you, before, and this is quick, before I had kids, well, even part of the time when I had kids, but before I had kids and had more responsibility, my Malak and my brother would be like, man, how do you do that? I would never write. I never wrote anything down. All the songs I did before, I never wrote them down. I would just write them in my head. And I would memorize them and go in the studio and rap them. And so at some point I started writing stuff down, and I was like, man, like, I can't remember this. I got to write it down. But I didn't, I couldn't figure out why. And so, and because of that, you know, and that was a little pride to that too. Cause I was like, man, why can't I remember the verses or whatever? And so I felt a little bad, but then I think I was talking to Malak or something, and he was just reminding me like, well, one, man, you're getting older. For two, I mean, it's reality. For two, man, you got kids. At this point, I already had 3 kids. He's like, man, you got 3 kids. You had this going on with your wife is sick, and you got all this different stuff. This for my first wife. You got all this different stuff going on. I understand why you can't retain all that stuff. And so now I still write stuff. Like if I'm writing something out or writing some music out or whatever, I still would actually pen it out, or I would do it even if I didn't pen it out. If I'm in the studio or whatever, I would just write out the first few verses and I would lay those down, and then I would just kind of brainstorm through the next few lines, and then I would lay those down and brainstorm through the next few lines if I didn't feel like writing it all out. But before I would write a whole song, a whole verse, hooks and everything, and just kind of keep it.
Wow,
but
that's impressive. That's impressive, man. I can't say that I've ever done that for a full story. I mean, I get like the outline in my head, but
yeah, but you writing like 60,000 words. So.
I do.
that's a big difference from
right.
8 bars or 16 bars.
Right. I guess that is true. But every once in a while, it is funny. I don't even know why I should share this, but I think it's fitting because it's you and me. But it's like, it is funny. Like if I ever read something backwards, like in what I write, and like there is like a rhythm you kind of get into, because like you develop your style. I mean, you develop your style as an artist, you develop your style as a writer. You start to hone a style, even though you may have a certain way of outlining everything and putting it together. And it varies once in a while, but every once in a while I'll be like reading it and it just feels like I'm repeating myself, and then I'll feel like, okay, I got to go back and do something to really charge the creativity. Like be a little more inspired. Maybe I'll go read something or whatever. Something to kind of change it up a bit.
Right.
But I think where I was initially going with that statement was, if I'm writing it and I know that I need to get this down now, I have to write this now or I'm going to lose it later. I'm not going to be able to retain it. Because it's part of something else that I'm trying to build within the story. It's like you said, it may not be so many stanzas down, but this has to be, I gotta get this idea before I get to chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Excuse me, because I may lose it and I may not have it again. So yeah.
One thing I used to do too is when I would write music, I still do this somewhat, is I know the ending of what I want to say.
Yeah.
And I'll know the beginning of how I want to start. So I would get those two things. So I get an idea of what I want to talk about, and then I know how I want to start it. I know how I want the story to end, and then I just fill the middle in. And that's usually how my process of writing goes. It's kind of weird, but
no.
I know, like knowing the beginning and knowing the end, then I can fill in the details and see, because I know how much space I have, how much time I have. Like, okay, I want to say this. How do I get from here to here, and what all do I need to? How do I not leave too much out to where it's just really vague? But how do I give a little bit of detail? But I know I can't give a lot because I only have a short amount of time to do it, to actually get people to be like, oh wow, like that, I understand the message. So yeah. I mean, it can be challenging, but it's more challenging when I try to do it by myself.
Right.
That's when it becomes really challenging, because I try to force it or whatever. So
yeah, and in writing, it's almost the exact same way. I mean, you do have a sense of where you want to begin, and you also have a sense of the ending. And then that in-between space is really where you operate. I mean, where you're really just kind of like unpacking ideas. You're trying different things to see where it's going to go, but you have that ending in sight. I actually think the same way. More and more we talk, Willie, I find that we are more and more alike than you can than we can possibly believe. Which,
you can't get rid of me now, Josh.
No, I can't. I can't do it. I'll be thinking of you whenever I fold clothes now too. That's the
right.
That's the other thing. I'll be folding clothes. I'll be like, favor. I'll be thinking that.
Right.
I'll be thinking of that. Ashley will be like, "What are you doing over there?" I'll be like, "You don't understand." You have to listen to the interview I had with Willie, and she'll be like, "Oh,
right.
Oh, all right. I'll have to listen to that now." So,
my goodness.
But like having a sense of a vision, is from an artistic standpoint, not to derail too much, but just the ending and the beginning, as far as what I want to accomplish, what I want to do. And there's different writers. I mean, different writers have different styles, as far as how they attack a project.
Right.
So some guys they'll start from square one and go, I have no idea where this is going. and I'm just gonna see where this takes me, where the story goes. I'm gonna see what comes out. And there's other guys who probably like more like you and me who goes, you know, I have a beginning and I have an ending. I have this story now that I'm going to tell in between, and I got to figure out the most effective means to get me from point A to point B. And you know, so you know, I don't really know if either way is which way is better necessarily. It's just kind of the way you work. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
So cool, man. Well, I think I'll bring this one in for a landing here. I know you and I could just keep going on and on, man, because it's just good conversation. So, and I love hearing about just all your pursuits and whatnot, and everything that you're doing, man. So
I appreciate the support, man. I definitely appreciate you.
Yeah. I mean, you guys got a lot on your plate, but I think you're balancing it quite well. And if you weren't, I would hold you accountable as I should.
Right. Exactly.
So is there anything as far as, you know, before we kind of send you off here for Fold in 2019, I know you said you guys are going to be working on a project, maybe collabing with someone, with some artists over in Africa. Is that something you see really soon on the horizon, or is it more so, hey, we're doing better than blended stuff right now, we got, you know, TKI has really picked up for us? Or and you may have answered a little bit of this earlier, but I just kind of want to give you a chance to talk about that a little bit more.
That's cool. That I definitely. So I'll say this: when it comes to deadlines, the reason I hit deadlines is because of my wife. So I would just be honest. Now, I mean, there are some stuff that I will hit deadlines on my own. Like if we have, you know, I'm working with a client or something like that. But she holds me accountable to deadlines. Like the reason that I got an EP done before, because for me it was like I really like collabing with other artists, and part of that was because it was just easier. It's easier to actually do a feature, or it's easier to actually do a song or album with somebody, because then you don't have to take on all the responsibility. And I had, at that point, I had never. I've written songs, whatever, but I've written hooks, a couple verses, stuff like that. But I never had done a whole song by myself, and I had never done a whole EP or project by myself. And so, I mean, she just was a fire behind that. Like, she really, really got behind me and was pulling meetings together, pulled people together, said, hey, we're going to put this thing together. This is what we're doing. She had a little outline. And so I would say to that, the goal is to do a project this year. I really want to try to do something preferably, I would say maybe by the summertime, close, like even at the latest, the end of the summertime going into fall, having a project done. And it may not be a whole album or anything like that. I may just put out a single. But I know with the guys that are in Africa, they've been on me. Like literally, I talked to one of them today, and he was just saying, hey, we got to get moving on this project. Let's try to get something, and let's start working on something at least by March. As far as having something written out, have a idea of where we want to go and what we want to put out, and so then we can start working on some songs to start getting stuff flowing, you know what I'm saying, by the summertime. So
cool. My
goal for it is to have something by the summer. I mean, right now I still got a little bit of legwork to do, just because I got to get my website and all that stuff back up, which is just simply iamfold.com. But I got to go into that and get that cleaned up and get it back up and running. Just there's a lot of stuff, a lot of little back end things that I got to do, and in conjunction with focusing on like 4 other businesses. So
yeah, that's the thing that I think is just so amazing about you guys, is like the ability to balance it all and doing it well, because you guys are doing it well, but it's not done flippantly, I think is the best way to put it. I mean, you guys, right. There has to be some serious intention, some intentionality there in order to make it all work. So
that's part of the hold up too. Is just, you said it right. It's like, when we do things, we try to do them with quality. We try to do them at excellence, because everything we do unto. So it's like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. I don't want to do it and just put something together just to say I'll put something out. So I want to make sure that the quality and everything is there.
Cool. Very cool, man. So if you did want to find anything by Mr. Fold, by Willie, there are some songs on YouTube with you and Matlock that you could go find out, which is how I found you anyway. So that was cool.
Right.
And you guys do have a Facebook page too, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's well, I'll send you the links so then you can put the links in the description because I don't remember all that. I know that the YouTube, I know the songs. The name of the song, one of the songs is Favor, and it will be by Malik and Fold. We have another song, I think it's listed. It's In Christ I Trust, but it's listed as ICIT. So it's In Christ I Trust or ICIT with Matlock and Fold. And I think, and then I have a single video that's from some years back. What is that? Oh, it's called Turn Up. That one's called Turn Up. So we just type in Turn Up and type in Fold or I Am Fold, and it will come up. So cool. But yeah, that's what we got on YouTube.
Cool. Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I'll be tracking with you as the year goes on, as you know. I mean, obviously, because I'm sure we'll be talking and dialoguing.
Right. I'll be sending you music to critique and listen to.
That's right. That's right. As we said before, it's always kind of like don't know what this person's going to think, or maybe,
right.
You know, here, check this out, man. You know, will we still be friends after you listen to my music? Please.
Well, we've built a bond that even if my music sucks, which hopefully it won't, but even if it sucks, you stuck with me. Like right now, you can just be like, Willie, man, that song was not good. Like I'm gonna just stick to Favor. Like you need to like do that one over. Don't put that one out yet. like during this song with Favor, you had Favor. Post Favor, not it. It's not there. It ain't there, man. So I will be honest with you. So as best as I can. So thanks again, man, for being on here. I really appreciate it. Always good talking to you. I appreciate it too, man. Thank you.